Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. And on today's show, we will be talking about everything involving redistricting, the hot issue not only in Fort Bend County, but in the state of Texas, now receiving national attention, is the redistricting of the state of Texas. And redistricting is a hot topic at the state level, but for those who don't know, it has been a hot topic at the local level too in Fort Bend County. It has been a rigmarole of an issue at Fort Bend County where things have been redistricted and now where it's being proposed to be put back to its old status or something of that sort. And now this is happening at the national level, at the federal level as well, which will affect congressional races. So we're going to talk about everything redistricting at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. And on today's show, we have two men who are well qualified to talk about this issue. Two men that are going to give you all of the details about this issue. You'll have a good understanding of it when we're done. And these two men have made considerable contributions to the well-being of Fort Bend County. And so for those of you that don't know, Fort Bend County has been a tumultuous county for the past 10 years. What's happened over the past 10 years has been a fight, left versus right, over the future of Fort Bend County. And the two men in our studio today are two men who were fighting to keep the traditions, the legacy, the historical nature of Fort Bend, that spirit of Texas, that spirit of freedom. They were fighting to retain our individual rights in Fort Bend County, and they made considerable contributions to that measure. And so we appreciate them. They're going to talk today. And one of those men is Texas State Rep Matt Morgan. And Texas State Rep Matt Morgan, before he was Texas State Rep Matt Morgan, he was everyday individual Joe citizen Matt Morgan. He was small business owner Matt Morgan. And what happened is he had seen enough. You see, at that time, our Republican Party at the state level had largely been taken over by a corporate agenda. They were not going there to push for the rights of the citizens. They were pushing for the rights of the corporations, the interests of the corporations. And the people of Fort Bend had had enough. There was a group called the Dirty Dozen, which was the central core, about 12 men in our Republican House that were fighting for the corporatist agenda. And one of them was our own state rep, J.C. Jaton. And he was representing Fort Bend County, and he was a household name. He was an establishment figure. He was well-funded. He was well-backed, and he was well-situated in Fort Bend County. He was a rock. He was not going to be moved. And what had happened is the people of Fort Bend grew resentment over this corporate agenda, and finally Matt had had enough, and he threw his name in the hat, his name in the ring to take on J.C. Jaton, a David versus Goliath decision. I would say even at the time, many said it was a foolhardy decision. But he did it. He did it. And when he did that, J.C. Jaton brought all the guns. He brought the corporate media. He brought Rick Perry into town. He brought a budget that was more than double what Matt could muster up. So while Matt was out there trying to gain $20 donations, J.C. was double, tripling that. It was easy business, right? Well, what Matt Morgan did is he did something that's grassroots level. And what he did is he went around the county and he told his story and he told his reason why he was running. And he shook the hand of every county resident twice in Fort Bend County. And he also got a team of patriots behind him, parents, citizens, fighting for the rights of the citizens. And they overtook the cabal, the establishment in Fort Bend County. They defeated J.C. Jaton. It was an incredible moment in Fort Bend County's history, a part of Fort Bend's history that will go down in the lifelong history of Fort Bend. And since that time, Matt has implemented an agenda that is restoring rights to the citizens, the agenda that we need, and that's Matt Morgan. But on a personal note, I have to tell another story about Matt Morgan because he did something considerable to me. I'm so appreciative for what he did. I have a good friend in my neighborhood, a neighbor in Meadows Place named Raul. Raul is a good man. He's a father, and he's a patriot, and he's an HPD officer. And so I've been an activist for some time. Whenever I come across Raul, he always pats me on the back, thanks me for what I'm doing. He loves the country. Raul was at a youth baseball game that Matt was attending, and Raul had a double-blocked heart attack. Went down for the count. Lights out. Game over. It was a very bleak situation. Matt threw Raul in his car, put that gas pedal down, and ran every red light. Don't tell the Meadows Place police, but he ran every red light, and he got Raul to the hospital. I saw Raul 2 weeks ago on the run trail, and he told me this story. I was running, he was walking. He was working out a sweat. He was getting back in condition, and he told me the story about Matt Morgan. And so, there's Matt Morgan for you, community citizen, and on that day, a hero. So, Matt, I just want to say thank you, because Raul was a good friend of mine, and man, I'm so glad that we saved him. Thank you very much for doing that. Thank you. And in the other side of the studio, we have a household name in Fort Bend County, a man who has been a beacon of sanity in an insane world for the past decade in Fort Bend County, a man who, over the course of his tenure as county commissioner, Andy Meyers, I should say his name, Andy Meyers, over the course of his tenure as county commissioner, he has always brought a dollars and cents, common sense position to our county commissioner's court. That idea isn't so popular in the commissioner's court, okay, but he's held his ground. He always brings issues to us in an easy to understand way. He's not trying to overcomplicate it so that they confuse us and make us go away. No. He's out there trying to make it easy to understand in an easy to understand way so that he can get you on his side and we can restore the rights of Fort Bend County. That's County Commissioner Andy Meyers. And I have a story about Andy Meyers too. So for those of you that don't know, Andy Meyers was in a heated primary a couple years back. And in this primary, what had happened is they had a county debate. And it was big time, man. Like every local politician came to this debate. They all brought their game face. They were all practicing in their cars before they got onto the debate stage. And then it was go time. And these people were bringing their best games. And so candidate after candidate's going up there at this local forum. All the county residents are in there. It was great. And what happened is we were all looking forward to Andy Meyers because Andy Meyers knows it more than anyone, right? He's been around for a long time. He knows the history. He knows the facts, the data, the stories, everything about Fort Bend County. So we're looking for a master class from Andy Meyers, okay? So it's Andy Meyers' turn to go to the debate stage. We're looking for a master class. What Andy Meyers does, he pulls out a comedy skit. He pulls out a comedy skit. And what he does is he pulls out a comedy skit from a 1940s movie that none of us had seen. He went the long game with this one. He pulls out this comedy skit, and he does it on an old American movie. And nobody had seen this movie. Most of the people, they weren't even from, a lot of people were from foreign countries. So, but what he does, he pulls out this comedy skit, and he nails it. He nails it. He has the whole place belly aching laughing. Everybody's laughing. It was great. He won the night. He won the night. And I can tell you that every candidate, when they went home that night, they were practicing their comedy skills. It was incredible. Andy, do you remember that?
I do.
And what was the movie?
I'll
tell you what it was. It was Harvey the Rabbit.
Yes, Harvey the Rabbit.
He pulls out this skit from a 1940s movie that no one even knew.
It actually was, the name of the movie was Harvey. And Jimmy Stewart was the star of the movie, and he had an imaginary friend, this rabbit named Harvey. And I'm not going to go into detail. It was a very entertaining and a very famous movie that for my generation, I guess, best for me to put that, because obviously it was a comedy, but it had a message to the story also, and so it resonated with a whole lot of people. And most people, when you mention Harvey, they remember, oh, that's the imaginary rabbit, the 6'4" rabbit.
Yeah, and it was an audience that was completely foreign to that whole movie, that whole time era, this country at that time. But you did bring that point home, and you turned it into a comedy skit, and it worked. It was hilarious. I still tell that story to this day. But with that being said, gentlemen, so redistricting is what everybody wants to know about, and the issue with redistricting is that it's confusing. We get into these articles, and none of them break it down in a comprehensive manner, in an easy to understand way. And the other issue is that there's redistricting happening in two areas. There's I don't even know if you would call it the federal state, the congressional district, but then at the local level in Fort Bend County. And I want to start off with that. Can we talk first, please explain the difference between the two from I want it broken down, where there's two different redistrictings happening. Is that correct? Could you please break it down for me?
Yes. First of all, I want to congratulate and thank Matt Morgan. Without his initiative, without his efforts, we would not be talking about redistricting for Fort Bend County, because he is the individual, he's the guy, he's the official that brought to everybody's attention the fact that despite the representation from the Democrat leadership that basically passed the redistricting map in 21 on a 3-2 vote. There was 3 Democrats versus 2 Republicans. We were told that the map had been reviewed by outside counsel, that it complied with all federal and state laws. We accepted that representation. We didn't think he'd lie about it, but we accepted that representation, and it was Matt who actually discovered and found out that we didn't comply with the law.
Yep.
And he sent a letter to the members of the court. That started the whole process, and we'll discuss that in a minute. But we're here because of this guy right here.
Yep. Thank you, Matt. It's awesome. So again, as I understand it, first let's talk about the history. There's redistricting at the county level, and then it's at the state level, which affects national congressional elections, correct? That's the 2 areas of redistricting. Is that correct?
So actually, Chris, I'll say there's actually 3. So we're doing voter precincts locally because the voter precincts are illegal. And actually, in my mind, what that does is that suppresses voters in certain precincts where they're not adding more voting locations. And then the second one would be we're doing the commissioner's court is being redistricted, and then
at the county level, Fort Bend County level.
Right. All of that is local. The state is not involved in that at all. And then the other thing we're doing is we're doing congressional seats in the Texas House, in the Texas Senate that the Abbott will sign. So, unlike Commissioner's Court, the only things during special sessions that we can address are things that the governor puts on the call, and he's put on the call. We're doing congressional seats. Now, congressional seats have been redrawn in without a census over and over and over again. In fact, the Democrats used to do it often in the 70s and the 80s when they controlled the Texas House. So it's kind of funny that, they're very upset about that now when that was a norm for the course, back when they were in control of the Texas House.
Yeah,
so.
I think everybody sees the hypocrisy. It's laughable at this point. I want to keep I want to keep this conversation on the local level to start out the conversation. So can we start there? Tell us what this is, precincts level and then counties commission. At the local level, Matt said there are 2 issues. We're redistricting precincts, and then we're redistricting the county commissioner's court. And I also want to explain, if you could please give the history, because as I understand, we had a map that was changed. In other words, our county map was in place until the year 2021, and then it was the Democrats that redistricted to the current map. So at 2021, they redistricted. 2025, now we're talking about redistricting it back. But please explain that.
Let me explain that. You're required under the U.S. Constitution to redistrict every decade, every 10 years. So you have a one-man, one-vote deal. Typically, you don't redistrict in mid-decade, although you can do so. It's allowed, and in many instances, as you pointed out, that has occurred. And it occurred, throughout the 80s and 90s, several times on the state level. What occurred with regard to this local level is that Matt had sent us the letter that I'd mentioned earlier that the county
2011,
the 2011
current. From 2011 to 2021,
the current
Matt
map
was protesting
right.
The current one, not the one that's being potentially proposed in a minute. The current one that we're voting on now,
right.
Matt protested that one.
Right. That map came about this way. We went through a redistricting process in 21. It was a little different than we did in the other 2 decades that I was involved in, from the standpoint that we did not have a citizens committee, and so each of the members of the court drew their own maps, more or less, had the public hearings. If they, some of us had public hearings, others did not. And we presented the maps that at public hearings in which the public had the opportunity to give input and question. We all evaluated each other's maps. And when we got into November, when we had to actually approve a map, we again went through kind of a last-minute review of the current maps that had been presented. We're in Commissioner's Court in which we are debating the maps that we had been reviewing when all of a sudden a last-minute map is introduced. Nobody had ever seen it. The public had not had an opportunity to review it. Most members of Commissioner's Court, including me and my fellow Republican Vince Morales, had not had an opportunity to even review the map. It was presented in the middle of Commissioner's Court, in the middle of debate and discussions. At that time, there was a motion made to approve a map that was, I don't remember, I think it was made by, I don't remember who made the motion in the second, but Vincent Morales then made a motion to substitute a new map for the map that was presented. The map that he was going to put forward was a map that was drawn by Ken DeMerchant. Ken DeMerchant's map was a map that basically held things more or less in place, wasn't radical changes. Most of the commissioners would remain in their precincts. It just kind of made a few minor adjustments to the then map that was passed in 2011. So there was no radical changes at all. I seconded the motion, and our county attorney ruled that motion to amend the map, which to substitute the Ken DeMerchant's map for the map that was introduced, out of order. That was incorrect legal advice because she said it was not germane. The amended motion was not germane to the main motion under Robert's Rules of Order. And under Robert's Rules of Order, it is germane because the main motion was about redistricting map. The amendment is about redistricting map. They're about the same issue, so that it is germane. They should have allowed us to have a vote, and I think it would have been 3-2 with Vincent and I and Ken DeMerchant voting for Ken DeMerchant's own map, and we would not have the mess we have today. That was incorrect on her part. The majority of the court went along with it. They introduced the new map at the last second that nobody had an opportunity to view, and it was immediately voted on and approved. That map, I'll give you some statistics.
Okay, if I may say, basically to sum up what you just said, they were already violating procedural rules
Correct.
to change the map. Today we have a map that I would say is heavily favored towards Democrats. And I would even say that the map was largely targeted to take out County Commissioner Andy Meyers.
Correct.
They put this thing through. They violated procedural rules. Once those rules were violated, they then dropped this map in 2021, this current map, on the commissioners, made them vote when they had the votes without anyone reviewing it, having discussion, or anything of that sort. Is that right?
And at that time, they claimed that the outside attorney that had been hired by our county attorney had reviewed the map and approved it, that it had complied with all federal and state law, which turns out to be incorrect. No attorney has ever reviewed that map.
So no attorney reviewed it. It did not comply. And in 3 years later, Matt Morgan gets elected. And in comes Matt Morgan, and he raises the issue at the state level, which gives it the weight, the awareness that it needed.
Correct.
You know, any Joe citizen does it. Nobody gives a gosh darn about that citizen, unfortunately. But Matt does it. He's a heavyweight, and he brings it, and it gets the attention it needs.
All right. What I did after Matt had, so we've got this map that's been approved. We're now several years into this map. We've already gone through 2 elections in 22 and 24 with the current map that was approved in 21. So you've gone through 2 elections with a map that does not comply with federal or state law. It has, what it did, it changed 95% of the voters in Precinct 3 ended up with a new commissioner and JP and constable that they did not vote for.
So Andy brought this map, just to give you an idea. I apologize for my weak graphics here, but pink is what Precinct 3 was right here. And then Precinct 3 over here is what it is now. You can see the orange, this orange, they really like kind of twisted that thing to make it work, where they're bringing different ethnic minorities together.
4.
I know. But the point is, like, they're configuring the map to bring certain groups together to marginalize the conservative vote. Andy gets conservatives, so they pigeonholed him here into a smaller unit there, and that's what they did. They're jury rigging the whole thing, so Democrats own the county in perpetuity, and then we can have Fort Bend County have the same result that Harris County had. Andy and I were talking before the show. Andy lived in Houston and Harris County. He saw the death and destruction of that once beautiful, great town. And now the cancer is spreading to Fort Bend County because of the new county districting maps brought to you by the county Democrats.
One of the things
Right. And
that
let me add to that point for just a second here is that, what you're hearing is there's a theme of corruption from the Democrat side in Fort Bend County, right? So they produced a map that no one had seen. They claimed that it was legal map. It's clearly not legal. In fact, the letter I sent to the commissioner's court said 21%. So a fifth of the county, they were breaking the law on a fifth of the county precincts in Fort Bend County, right? So that's a huge number. And then, they drew it in the dark of night. That showed up at one point in time. And the county attorney, who is supposed to represent the entire commissioner's court and give good legal advice, apparently doesn't understand the Robert's Rules of Order and doesn't understand that that's germane. I mean, anyone that has spent any time in a debate class actually would understand that, the Kenda Merchant map, the substitution request motion by Vincent Morales was 100% germane. And so, you just we drew it in the dark of night. We did this, we put it in at the last second, and we have this ruling. Like, it was all set up and planned ahead of time. And I'm sure it probably was. And I'm sure there was discussions. Yes, 100%.
The key issue in this is when, in the middle of this debate and approving the current map that we have, the county judge made the statement that 3 of the precincts were drawn on the basis of race. He stated it several times. He has subsequently stated that he was not aware that drawing a redistricting map on the basis of race was not legal under federal Constitution and Supreme Court decisions. He said, I wasn't aware that nobody told me that it was illegal. That's the crux on which we are redistricting today. After Matt had sent us the letter and I started looking at it, I then tried to hire an attorney to basically give me advice with regard to whether or not the map complied with all statutes, both federal and state, because Matt pointed out that it violated the state laws with regard to the number of registered voters per voting precinct. However, I wanted to make certain that it complied with both state and federal law with regard to redistricting for, we'll call it commissioners' precincts, but the JPs and the constables also follow the commissioners. So it's a commissioners as well as the JP and the constables' precincts that we're talking about. So it affects 3 elected officials in each of the 4 precincts. In some cases 4, because there are a couple of them that have 2 JPs.
Real quick, it affects the JPs, the commissioners, and who's the third one?
The constables. So I went through a series of them. I finally ended up with an attorney by the name of Tony McDonald. I'd tried to get Joe Nixon. I knew Joe Nixon from the time when he was in the legislature. I knew he was an attorney who specialized in redistricting. He basically been handling Tarrant County's redistricting issues that they have. He was so busy with Tarrant County, he said, I can't help you, but here's a guy you can contact. I did contact him. He's the one that brought it to my attention that under the minutes of the meeting where he pointed out that that KP George, our county judge at the time, well, he's still a county judge, but he was at that time a Democrat, stated specifically that the map was drawn on the basis of race. And he pointed out that you can't use, unless you're required to, under the Voting Rights Act, to use race, which we're not, Fort Bend County is not required to do so, you absolutely cannot use race as a basis for redrawing the lines. So consequently, the map that was drawn, the map that was approved, is an illegal map. It doesn't comply with either state or federal laws. It still doesn't comply with it. We haven't corrected them yet. So we started the process of trying to correct an illegal map to the point that it does comply with both federal and state law. That's where we're at today.
And I think it's important for the voters to understand, or the listeners, to understand, Andy, who actually drew that map. We know who drew the map.
Well, I've been told, I was told by KP George and a couple of members of staff that Dexter McCoy, who was KP George's chief of staff at the time, drew the map. He is now, he ran for office at Precinct 4 Commissioner. He got elected in Precinct 4. At this point, recently, up until very recently, Dexter didn't have any comments about it, but now he's adamant about the fact that he did not draw the map. I've asked for two things. One, I was told that outside legal counsel had reviewed the map and had came to the conclusion it complied with the law. I have asked for a copy of the document that says that. I've yet to get it.
Yeah, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I said, well, if Dexter McCoy is the individual who delivered the map to Commissioner's Court at the last minute. He's the guy that walked into the Commissioner's Court with the map in his hand and delivered it to all 5 members of the court. So my deal is, if Dexter McCoy didn't draw the map, who drew it? I have not gotten an answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the things that I sort of personally identified early on is that they have these whiteboard meetings where they construct they have the goal they want, the outcome they want, then they construct the events that they need. They construct drama, theatrics, and then they get their intended outcome. I think that's a constant thing that they do. Well,
the thing that they keep saying is that, and there's a memo. Actually, it's an email from the law firm that Fort Bend County had engaged Allison Bass out of Austin to advise us. Our county attorney hired a company, a firm by the name of Brazil Dunn, is located here in Fort Bend County. So I asked, we had 2 law firms, okay? I'm trying to find out which of these law firms actually were the ones that were, that were intimately involved in this redistricting process. So I asked our auditor give me the invoices from both of these and let me see. One of them has 0 hours with regard to providing legal advice. The other has over 90 hours. So the firm that the Fort Bend County hired, Allison Bass out of Austin, has 0. The firm that our county attorney engaged has over 90 hours. So obviously it was the firm that the county attorney hired that was the one that was overseeing providing advice, et cetera, to make certain that we met all the federal and state statutes, over 90 hours. I've yet to see any report, any memorandum, any legal document that says Brazil Dunn reviewed the map and had come to the conclusion we met all the federal and state requirements as was represented in Commissioner's Court on November the 5th when we adopted the plan. Nothing so far. I've asked for the documents. I've gotten nothing.
So, Andy, I'll make this offer to you here. If you have trouble getting those and you need, if you feel like you need my assistance and, helping the state put pressure to make sure that you get the documents as the commissioner that you're entitled to receive and get, happy to help you in any way we can. So,
and I appreciate that. At the end of the day, I'm a county commissioner. I'm
that's right.
Supposed to be. I'm their client. Okay, I'm
yes.
both the county attorneys as well as Brazil Dunn and Allison Bass's client. I'm their client.
And
they owe their client the responsibility of providing all the documentation.
And neither law firm will give it up to you?
I'm sorry?
Neither law firm will give it to you?
Well, Allison Bass says they don't have one because they didn't review it. They told me specifically, I talked to Jim Allison, the senior partner of the firm. He said, I was given the map at the last second and I only had enough time to verify that we were within what they call the population variance. You can't be more than plus or minus numbers of residents in each of the precincts. So you have a population variance of no more than plus or minus 5%. They only had enough time to review that. They did not he told me specifically, I did not have time to review whether or not it complied with either federal or state law. I didn't have enough time. They didn't give me enough time. So all I had time to do was just verify the population variance, and you met that, but the others I didn't have time to do it, so I got no opinion on it.
Okay.
So that's, I've not gotten, documents that I've asked for. So I'm still waiting. Now, admittedly, it's only a little over a week ago that I asked for the documents, but that's something I should have gotten the next day, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be following up. And if I don't get it, then we're going to escalate it to the next level.
So Again, if they get Andy Meyers off the court, then they have a lot more leverage, a lot more leniency in spending the money that they see fit. They have less of a check and balance system. And again, they rewrote the maps largely for that purpose. But in spite of that, you went through a re-election.
I did.
And you survived.
I did
So
survive.
tell us about that.
Okay. The precinct 3 is currently essentially a 56% Democrat precinct. The incumbent JP Justin Joyce lost his election 44 to 56. They anticipated I'd lose the election by the same amount.
To a man named Terrell Patel, correct?
Their candidate was a South Asian, Terrell Patel, who won. He won a 5-person Democrat primary without a runoff. So that was pretty impressive, frankly. That everybody anticipated he would win the
And he was putting together, I mean, I've seen his advertisements. He would drive around in a car with a shovel, and he'd find county potholes, and he would do advertisements in front of county potholes.
Right. He was going to get a pothole fixed within 24 hours. Well, that doesn't happen in any county. But in any event, what occurred was I have a South Asian on my staff. Nidhi Kambe is her name. Brilliant young lady, very smart and very helpful. Well connected in her community. She helped put together just about all their cultural events, and so she helped me get even more inroads. Although I'd been building my own inroads into the community, she was a very big help. And sometime in September of I don't remember the exact time frame, but I think it was September 23. There was this an individual using a handle Antonio Scallywag that started putting out some really nasty, racist, bigoted statements, particularly about South Asians.
I got inboxed by that guy.
Yeah, and so my South Asian community, began to express some concerns about this because there were very nasty comments about them, and then Antonio Scallywag started attacking my employee, my South Asian employee, my Indian American employee, and both of those things were over the top for me. That's not acceptable to me at all. So I went to the district attorney's office and I said, "Look, I want to file a complaint, and all I want to do is find out who this guy is, and we want his identity. Once we get his true identity, he'll stop all of this. He'll quit all these racist statements that he's been making." And so I said, "What is it going to take?" And Brian Milton says, I need probable cause." I said, "Well, okay, give me how do you get probable cause?" He said, "Well, if you will file a formal request and give me the detail that you just gave me with regard to the reasons that you're asking for this, it'll give me probable cause to start the process." So I said, "Fine."
Because being ignorant isn't breaking the law.
Right. So I said, "Fine, I'll do that," and I did. So he started the investigation, and then sometime in the summer of 24, he mentioned to me, he said, "We have identified who Antonio Scallywag is, and you're going to be rather happy about
Real
that."
quick, what was the probable cause that he acted on?
My request to do an investigation based on the fact that they were attacking my constituents in my precinct and on the fact that they were attacking my employee. So that was a probable cause, my written request for him to start the investigation. So in June 12th of 24, we get the big announcement they've arrested Antonio Scallywag, a.k.a. Terrell Patel, and it went downhill from him. He ended up with 9 criminal indictments. Excuse me. 4 of them were felonies. 5 of them were misdemeanors. And he ended up pleading guilty to a couple of the misdemeanors that got him, he avoided jail time. He avoided a conviction on a felony, which would prevent him from running for office in Texas and prevent him from doing a lot of other things, getting professional licenses and things of this nature. So he pled out and pled guilty to the actions that he take. And so that's kind of how, obviously, from the standpoint that he had all these indictments, I obviously made that one of the issues. I mean, you don't want somebody who does these kind of things as your county commissioner, I don't think. And the great majority of the people, 60% of the people agreed with me. So 60% of the voters did anyway.
Yeah. So
Well,
he go ahead, please, Matt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it just, to me, it's a theme, right? So, we had, middle of the night meetings for maps. We have, a consensus of somebody who clearly should know Robert's Rules of Order and understand what is germane and not germane, and making a big goof about that, I guess, if you will, or purposely misleading the commissioner's court, right? I don't know which it is, but that's a possibility, and then we have other, so it's just in Fort Bend County, unfortunately, the Democrat Party is full of corrupt individuals that continue to, attack and try and mislead and and lie to the people and the voters and the constituents that they represent.
Fort Bend County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. It's pivotal in Texas elections. And what we see is conspiracies to essentially overtake this county, to attain domain over it. And I mean, we've had more than enough examples on this, in this short talk that we've had so far.
Well, we've gone through 2 elections in which 3 sitting incumbents were taken out of office because it was redistricted on the basis of race, which is illegal. So we've gone through two elections already utilizing an illegal map, and now the Democrat officials want us to go through a 3rd one in 26. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I think it's unfair to our voters. I think you've disenfranchised a lot of voters. As I pointed out, 95% of the voters in Precinct 3 were totally changed. I mean, they got a whole new commissioner, constable, and JP. And I simply think it's totally inappropriate, illegal, inappropriate. I call it inappropriate to use a map that does not comply with federal and state law as a basis for running a 3rd election. I'm trying to avoid that. That's the reason I've started this process, to fix a problem that we have, and I'm appalled, frankly, that we have so many people who think that it's perfectly okay because the Democrats more or less have kind of carved out an advantage for themselves with essentially utilizing race to create 3 precincts that favor the Democrats. I'm trying to balance things out. I'm trying to make things fair as I can to the voters, make certain that they're all, are fairly represented. I'm trying to keep, to the extent I can, the cities within one commissioner precinct. It gets kind of difficult whenever they're split. I'm trying to do all the things that you're supposed to do under federal and state law, either from a standpoint of it being legal or one from the standpoint of this is a typical procedure that you should comply with.
Well, Andy, I mean, again, I started this thing out saying your contributions to the county because you exposed this agenda to such an extent with that meeting with the district attorney, but then that led to the upheaval of the KP George reign over Fort Bend County. This guy was their MVP, their star player, and he was like Teflon Don in the elections. And because of your initiating this investigation, it led to him going down too, or he's on the way down, right?
Well, he's been charged with some misdemeanors and some felonies
Because the investigation into Terrell Patel discovered that KP was
Correct.
doing the same thing.
What they discovered is that there was a nexus between Terrell Patel, who was KP's chief of staff also at one time, and KP. And in his 2022 reelection effort, in which basically they kind of did the same thing. Antonio Scallywag kind of did the same thing in favor and to help KP and his reelection. And so they made a connection between KP and Terrell Patel on that basis.
So KP was having Terrell Patel use Antonio Scallywag to for his political benefit as well.
Well, I think that it was more Terrell Patel's suggestion, and KP kind of went along with it.
Well, I mean, that's the same thing.
Right.
I mean, you can say no, you're a professional.
Well,
you're the chief
true, you
executive.
can, but I think it was Terrell Patel leading KP more than KP leading Terrell Patel. He did go along with it. That's obvious. But when I talked to the DA's people who are doing the investigation, they said that this for Terrell Patel, this goes back to his days when he was at University of Texas. He was a college kid when he started this activity. So it's a long history with him.
Okay, so let's talk about the state of the new county map that is not even yet proposed, but potentially will be proposed in Fort Bend County.
Okay, what we did is the majority of the court, 3-2, we have done two things. We have engaged a firm that Rogers Morris and Rogers Morris firm, a law firm that basically handles school districts and cities to a large extent. They are a local firm. They're using the University of Houston's demographic operation for the demographics efforts that you have to go through on a redistricting of this nature. In addition, the court created a citizens redistricting committee in which we have each member of the court can appoint 2 members to this committee. The 3 now Republicans, KP, switched parties in July of this year. And so the 3 Republicans have appointed their 2 members, so there's 6 members and the 2 Democrats have refused to do so far. So right now you have a committee of 6 that will be meeting to do 2 things. One, to make certain that the voter precincts are within the state requirements, and 2, to make certain that the commissioner, JP, and constable precincts meet federal and state requirements.
So at the county level, the Democrats are doing the same thing. They're sourpuss. They're taking their ball. If they can't play their way, they take their ball and go home. Where KP George switched parties because he feels backstabbed by his own party, so he's switching parties to Republicans. It's not necessarily that he's being accepted. I would say he's not. But regardless, he's trying, and he's now voting with Republicans to redistrict the map back to a non-race-based map, correct?
Correct. He has stated publicly that he recognizes now that what he did was not right, that we approved a map, that he said I was misinformed. I was informed that all of these things that I told everybody, I was told. I was told that the law firm had reviewed the map, and now it appears there's no evidence that he did. I didn't realize you could not redistrict on the basis of race. So I want to, and frankly, I think it was unfair to redistrict Commissioner Meyers out of his home of 47 years.
Did you have to move?
I did. I had to move. A couple of weeks ago, they moved me back into my home, so I'm back in my house. But one of the things, they made a big issue out of the fact that, Commissioner Meyers, in redistricting, you showed a redistricting map that had you in Katy. And I said, yes. My wife had a terminal illness, and she wanted to try to spend her last days next to her grandkids who live in Katy. So I purposely redistricted myself into Katy. I was going to move into Katy and move her there as close to our grandkids as we could, so that she would have her last memories with her grandkids and they would have last memories with her. Well, the Democrats redistricted me out of Katy, so I told my wife, I said, look, honey, I've been at this a long time. I'm kind of old guy. I'll simply retire and resign and move you up there. And she said, absolutely not. That's what they want you to do. They're trying to force you out of office. They're trying to force you to resign and to give up. Said the last thing you do is give up, and the thing you better do is you better run for re-election in 24. She died in January of 23, so they don't have her around anymore. Unfortunately, we had 56 years together, a long time, 3 kids. We raised most of those kids in the home that we lived in. We lived there for 47 years. now in June of this coming year, I'll be there 50 years in that house.
That's a beautiful story, Andy.
Right. And so that is unprecedented action on the part of the Democrats on the court to redistrict a sitting commissioner out of his home. That has never occurred for any sitting county commissioner in the state of Texas ever.
So the reason we're here today is because Matt Morgan threw a stake down in the ground and said no more, and he brought light to this issue. Is
Absolutely. All the credit goes to Matt. I'm going to give 100% credit to Matt Morgan, because without his actions, we would not be here today.
Well, look, I appreciate that, Andy, but it's a fight for everybody, you know, and it's not just me. You've been in this fight a lot longer than I have, you know, and we've got Vincent helping us in this fight now, and KP is joined in as well. So, you know, it's a coalition, and you know, the thing is, you work hard every day for the people of Fort Bend County to ensure that, you know, their tax rates are as low as possible from the county level, that their roads are done and everything else. I do what I can from the state level. And so for me, we're working together to try and make Fort Bend County, which, you know, the best place in America to live, right? Which is, if it's the best place in America to live, then it's the best place in the world to live.
And we're not going to stay there unless we make some changes. The biggest change, here's the problem Fort Bend County is facing right now. Fort Bend County is a bedroom community. The great majority of our population that are employed have to commute to Houston and Harris County to go to work. The largest employers in Fort Bend County are governments. The 2 school districts in the county itself are the largest employers in the county. Between 75 and 80% of our property taxes that fund the county, the city, and the school district are paid by residential properties. We need more of a balance of industry and residential, which we don't have. And I've been working as hard as I can to try to position Fort Bend County to begin to attract more industry to the county, because we need to broaden the tax base, but more importantly, we need to create employment centers for the now pretty close to 1 million population that live in Fort Bend County, so that they can live and work in Fort Bend County. And we don't have that right now. And so I've been trying to do everything I can, including getting legislation passed to allow us to facilitate that. Also working with the universities to try to create some advanced research operations in Fort Bend County. The University of Houston has 200 acres. They've used about 40 of it right there in Fort Bend County. That is a place I'm trying to figure out how we can bring advanced research to our area. We have a very highly educated populace that lives in Fort Bend County that would be suited for that type of operation, that type of research, et cetera, and also bring industry to our community. We have what we call the Triple Fork, which is where all 3 of the Class 1 railroads come together. Ideal place to put industry, manufacturing. I had proposed what we call 36A, which has now become a major transportation corridor in the state of Texas that connects what will be the port is the deepest port on the entire Gulf Coast of Mexico to the largest inland distribution center in the United States in Dallas. Dallas is the largest inland port in the United States that we have. Port of Freeport will be the only port on the entire Gulf Coast that can accommodate the largest container ships and largest crude carriers that now can traverse the Panama Canal. So there's a lot of opportunities to move a lot of the international trade that comes into the West Coast that is dropped off at the West Coast, railed halfway across the country, several thousand miles to Dallas, where it's distributed both down into the Texas, Louisiana, but also up into the Midwest. It's the largest inland port in the United States, in connecting the deepest port on the Gulf Coast with the largest inland port in the United States, traversing the entirety of Fort Bend County, positions Fort Bend County in a great location to attract international and national industry to our community. So that's what I'm trying to do right now.
That's a tall order, Andy.
It is.
To finish up on this redistricting, so where are we at? When will this new one get voted on?
Well, we have a committee that's formed. Each of us have appointed people. We have several criteria that we're trying to make. We're trying to obviously honor the political subdivision boundaries. In other words, try to keep the cities together to the extent we can. It's not going to be totally possible because Vincent actually lives in Rosenberg. His precinct is up in Katy Fulsher. So obviously we can't keep all of Rosenberg in one precinct because Vincent lives there, and we have to, obviously we got to make certain we keep him in office. And so you got to redistrict in a way that you're going to take part of Rosenberg and put it in precinct 1. You have a kind of same situation a little bit with one of the JPs. If you put all of precinct 2 along what we call the Harris County, Fort Bend County line, from the top to the bottom, you end up with 3 JPs in one precinct, and that's not going to work. So we have to redistrict one of the JPs back into precinct 2 or actually precinct 4, because precinct 4 will have no JPs and you'll have 3 of them. And so there's some things that you've got to make certain you comply with. What I'm trying to do is make certain we first of all comply with federal and state law. So and we're trying to come up with a situation where we have an opportunity to the Republicans have a reasonable opportunity to win precinct 4. It will likely be we'll probably have 3 and 2 be a nominal, 3 being a nominal Republican, 4 being a nominal Democrat, but 1 in which there's an opportunity for a switch there. Now, that's not hard and fast. Obviously, the redistricting committee can come up with their recommendation, whatever it's going to be. There's a lot of different discussions about how to structure that. I know our party chair would like to see 3 Republican precincts. Don't know if you can make it. I haven't looked at it in detail enough to know whether or not we could make that happen and comply with all the other requirements that you're putting down. But I know that at least you can have one where you have a solid Republican, a solid Democrat, and then 2, one of them that leans Democrat, one of them leans Republican precincts. So that's where I think we will probably end up, although it's not set in stone, obviously, and it can go the other way.
Okay, there you go. So we have about 10 minutes left, and ask Matt. Matt, can you give us an update? Tell us what's going on redistricting at the state level that will affect congressional races. Give us that explanation, the update, everything.
Sure. So at the state level, like I said earlier on the call, which is basically a special session, the governor puts a list of items that we're to address. One of those is congressional redistricting. We're not redrawing our maps. We're not redrawing local maps. We're redrawing maps for who your congressman may or may not be. For the most part, those maps, most people are keeping their exact same congressperson with a few changes. They're redoing a handful of seats and actually creating 4 out of the 5 seats that are being, majorly adjusted, if you will. They're being drawn as majority minority districts. So, we want people to have a voice, and this is a way to give, a voice. And so, it's not being drawn on the basis of race because things aren't legal. We're following all the federal and whatever, and I'm not drawing maps. I will vote on them, but I'm not, and I'm not on the committee, so I don't have all of that stuff. But basically 4 out of the 5 maps that are drawn are majority minority maps. So the Democrats saying we're taking voices away from, minorities is completely wrong. We're actually amplifying it with the drawing of these maps, and we're getting rid of these, for the most part, these little squiggly lines that run from, the border in South Texas all the way into Austin, Texas, which is, 100 plus miles away, right? So, and we're making it a short, compact district that is just this and the surrounding counties around it. So that's what, from the maps I've seen, that's what it looks like, that we're doing. And so, it's about time that we reflect this. There are states like, people say, you should use independent redistricting committees. Well, if you look at the states that have independent redistricting committees, Illinois, so it's something, I don't have the figures in front of me, but around 40% of the people in the state of Illinois vote Republican, yet their congressional representation is over 80% Democrat. So we don't, there isn't a fair split. They're independent, redistricting committees were very partisan in how they drew their maps, and they have these super squiggly lines. It's funny. I saw a post the other day on Facebook, and it said, the Democrats fled the state of Texas in order to affect redistricting because they're mad about gerrymandering, and the district they fled into was actually looked like a sideways U or backwards C. It just went all the way around. Those people
they're drawing
don't
it out. They're cutting it out like a puzzle board, jigsaw puzzle to fit their interests.
Well, what you
100%.
you have several states controlled by Democrats where you have the Democrats get 51 or 52% of the vote, specifically in New Mexico and they have 100% of the congressional seats. 51% of the vote
They
get
should,
100.
they should have about half.
Yeah, you got half the residents in New Mexico who are disenfranchised.
So these maps have been heavily weighted towards a Democrat-favored status. So in other words, like Andy's saying, it's about 50% of the people are Republicans, 50% Democrats, but the maps are written so the Democrats get 100% of the congressional seats. It's brilliance on their part.
Well,
and it's getting
sure.
done.
So, but so how in the world are they going to complain about Texas doing something not exactly the same, but redistricting to somewhat more favor the Republicans? You have 100% of the seats and 51% of the vote. That doesn't compute to me.
Right. And look, I've seen maps that people post online. They drew their own. And, if Texas wanted to, they could go 35-3, 35 Republicans, 3 Democrats, right? They're not doing something that extreme because you would have to have some squiggly lines to do that and stuff. We are compacting the districts. We are making them smaller geographically area-wise. And it's because, you have more in common with the counties next to you than you do a county that's 10 counties away. And, you're taking one precinct from each of these and rolling up. It's ludicrous the way some of these were drawn. And so we're fixing some of those problems and issues.
I mean, just to give people an idea of how consequential this is, the Democrats' entire agenda has been to take the state of Texas because they have California and New York lockdown. They need Texas. And then the other 47 countries can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. The Democrats own the country. They own the world. And now with these maps being redrawn, that leftist dream dies, is basically what it is.
Yeah, and look,
Well,
California is, like Gavin Newsom has been extremely vocal about this. And it's hilarious. His independent redistricting committee is, there are about 45% of people in California, even though most Republicans from California flee to Texas, we get hundreds of them every single day that are moving here. But hit 45% Republicans in California. They have, again, they are at 80%. I think it's 82% Democrat representation in Congress, right? So, he's going to try and redistrict to offset us. Well, guess what? He's going to leave those districts open for Republicans to take over. In fact, a former California resident actually told me on the phone the other day, he said there were 2 Republican seats in Congress in California that they had to wait months before they closed the election because they were mailing in additional ballots to make sure that a Democrat won by like 50 votes or something. So, it was months after, hey, election day is, call it November 2nd. Well, they were March 3rd still accepting ballots to ensure that the Democrat won in some of those seats. So it's ridiculous how, Gavin Newsom's does some of his stuff, his aunt, Pelosi over there and her bags of money she made off the taxpayers' backs. I think America is sick of that. And I think they need to see through. And, we're just trying to make things right and make these maps where they're actually, more compact. So
Well, one race I want to talk about in particular, which is the one I find most fascinating is CD9. What's his name?
Al Green.
Congressman Al Green. So Al Green, before the maps, there's no way he could be beat. He's impenetrable. He is, completely owns his district. And Alexandria Butler enters the race as a Republican in a chance where she has no hope, but she follows her passion, she follows her interests, and she starts this campaign with no budget. And she's been leading a grassroots campaign where she spends her nights, weekends, evenings, afternoons at the school boards, at the churches, at the parent meetings, at the Patriot Group events. And so for 6 months, she's gotten her name out there. And now all of the sudden, she gets this gift where, her district's been changed. And now she's the only Republican in the race where it's fairly certain Republicans are going to win that race. And she's been at it for 6 months getting her name out there. And now she's putting herself in, I would say, a heavy advantageous spot. That is a fascinating development.
agreed. Again, I am not on the committee. I wasn't the one that drew any of these. So, but yes, I agree. And that district, the new District 9 compared to the old one, is much more compact. It's succinct. It's like drawing a block or whatever. And the old one was very squiggly lines and, a bit, it was done poorly and, in my mind. I wasn't here to vote on it before. I had no part of that. The last time these maps were drawn in 2021, I wasn't in office, but, I think it's important that we do that. We keep communities together as best we can. So I am excited for her that she's, in that race. I'm excited that we're going to get, Republican representation in CD9. I think that'll be, fantastic for the people of Texas and of that community. They deserve representation that, intends to help fight to lower taxes, and to, keep people honest and on the righteous path.
Well, if I can summarize this episode, I think it's been an absolutely fascinating discussion. But really, if we can bring down the central point, which is that Democrats have been using this tactic of redistricting to create election zones that are heavily favored for Democrats. And what they do is they take our voting maps and they end up being like this crazy jigsaw puzzle where it's, cut out here, there, and the other, so that they can get a group where they can win heavily, and they marginalize anyone with a different viewpoint. And that charade, that fraudulent tactic, is now coming to an end. Is that the best way to sum up everything we've discussed today?
Well, I don't think that gerrymandering is going to come to an end. They're going to continue to do so. Until we have the populace rise up and say, that's unfair, and vote those people out of office. So then you have a state legislature and governor who basically then agrees to draw a map that's fair to all the voters. It's going to continue. I don't see that changing at all. I think the Democrats are going to simply double down. I think they're going to try to do everything they can to squeeze every Democrat seat out of every state that they control that they possibly can, so that they get back control of Congress.
They're a cornered animal right now. They're a wounded, cornered animal. I would put it that way.
Well, they're not very popular. You wonder how in the world they have so many seats in Congress. Well, they have them because they dramatically gerrymandered the states.
Yeah. There's something like 10, 15 states that are almost 50-50 and have zero Republican representation. So, but yes, I agree. Your summary of I think your summary was pretty good. Although I agree with Commissioner Meyers that we're not going to see an end to this, but Texas is trying to do things the right way. Texas is trying to take hold, and I'm here fighting for, the people and the constituents and the voters of Fort Bend County, just like Commissioner Meyers. And I'm happy to be, side by side in arms, locked arms with Commissioner Meyers on these fights for, the taxpayers and the people of Texas.
It is incredible to see men from the state come down and work on county issues, working with county officials where it's pertinent. So that's an incredible development that happened. But
The biggest tragedy, in my opinion, is what the Democrats did to my longtime friend Tom DeLay. You may remember in the early 2000s, whenever he more or less orchestrated a redistricting.
real quick, Tom DeLay was a congressman from where?
A congressman from
Sugar
Sugarland.
Land.
Okay, because I was in Ohio back then.
Okay, Tom
And
DeLay.
I remember Tom DeLay.
Tom DeLay was a longtime congressman from Sugar Land. US 59 that basically created the improvements of US 59 that basically created Fort Bend County, Sugar Land, et cetera, and the Sugar Land Airport is all due to Tom DeLay, period.
That's an incredible airport.
It's
Every time I drive by that airport, I make my daughter sit up in her seat and count the airplanes in the bays. It is a gorgeous.
He got the
airport.
federal funding that allowed Sugar Land to develop that airport, but more importantly, he's the one who got the federal funding for 59. And made that allowed Fort Bend County to grow to the extent that it has, and particularly the city of Sugar Land. But in the early 2000s, he orchestrated a redistricting effort that got more Republican seats. And Ronnie Earl, the district attorney for Travis County, went through not one but 7 grand juries before they got a grand jury indictment. The jury in Travis County, who's not going to convict a Democrat or acquit a Republican, convicted him. He lost his seat, and after many years, the appellate courts overturned the conviction because they said, he didn't violate any true law. But in the meantime, they totally destroyed his political career. And
Who was this again?
I'm sorry?
Who are we talking about right now?
Tom DeLay.
Talking about Tom DeLay.
Uh-huh.
And the district attorney who prosecuted him was a guy by the name of Ronnie Earl, who was a district attorney for Travis County. At those years, anything that had to do with the state of Texas, because Travis County is where Austin,
Right.
the state government is located. He has the authority. He had the authority at the time. I think they've changed that, but he had the authority at the time with regard to any prosecution statewide. So
He could go in anybody's county because he was in Austin.
he did because Tom DeLay was essentially in Fort Bend County, Fort Bend and Harris County. He covered mainly those 2 areas, so it wasn't even in Travis County. Had nothing to do with Travis
What
County.
did he
but
prosecute him for?
he prosecuted him for basically money laundering. Essentially, he did the same thing that the Democrats did with regard to moving money around, which was legal. So he did exactly the same thing the Democrats had already done, but they convicted him anyway.
And it was legal what he did.
It was legal because his conviction was overturned.
It was a kangaroo court.
Was.
It was the first example of lawfare, right? We talk
Correct,
about that
it was.
now, but Tom DeLay
That's
was the
correct.
first target of lawfare because he started out as a state rep, actually,
Right.
and served in the Texas House. Then he became congressman for CD 22, and he was the majority whip there in Congress. And so the Democrats hated him, and they just kept plugging at it, like, Commissioner Meyers stated, until they finally found someone that said, yes, we can move forward. Or, they can move forward on something.
Tell you
So
a brief story about Tom DeLay. We, at the time, we were attending a fairly small church, Sugar Creek Baptist Church. It was now a fairly large church in Fort Bend County. And he was in our Sunday school class. And he stood up in class and said, I'm going to run for the state house. It's a Democrat holds the seat, but I think I can win. And it was at that point that my wife told me we're going to get involved in politics. So that's the first time. This is 1978. It's the first time we got involved in politics. And then he ran in 84 for Congress. And again, we got involved in his campaign. He won in 84, became a congressman, obviously, in the first of 85. And eventually, as Matt pointed out, rose to the leadership. He was majority whip of the House. He was majority, second, third in the pecking order, so to speak, in the House of Representatives. And he was very effective. He was a very effective legislator. He's a very effective politician, which is the reason they took him out of office.
Yep.
And the reason they tried to target me, because I'm fairly effective also.
Getting it, man. I'm just taking all these stories in.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's it, guys. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm overwhelmed here with this Texas history. So, I'm originally an Ohio guy. I've been here for about 2 decades, and I guess I'm learning from the pros.
Well, Tom's still
I've
in
been
the
a county
area.
commissioner for almost 29 years now, so I've been doing it a while.
Yeah. Tom actually lives in Cyprus now up with his daughter. I actually ran into him the other day at an event. So he's still around and still fighting and, does stuff at Republican clubs up there where he is now. So anyway, he's still got fight in him.
Very good. Very good. Well, guys, I think we had a great show. I mean, give the floor to both of you. If there's anything you want to finish up on, if you want to, let us know where we can learn more about you or anything of that sort, please.
As Matt said, this is a cooperative effort among the whole bunch of us. We're all trying to do the right thing and serve the people of Texas, and particularly the people of Fort Bend County. Both of us represent all of our constituents are in Fort Bend County. So obviously that's the county we're focused on, but we're also focused on the state as a whole. Because everything we do impacts not just our precinct, not just our representative district, but also the entire county, the entire state. And so we remain focused on not just making Fort Bend County the best place to live, but the state of Texas.
I agree with that entirely. Fort Bend's a pivotal county in the state of Texas. Matt, the floor is yours.
Sure. Well, first, I'm honored to be on the show and honored to, be friends and call, Commissioner Meyers and others my friend to help me in this fight. As you talked about at the beginning of your show, I was a grassroots candidate, and I'll correct your figures a little bit. I was outspent 10-1 at minimum, about 240 to 3 million. So, and we won. And so I will tell any fighter out there that, gets sick and tired of it. I raised my hand to run because I believe that those that have the ability to do so have an obligation to raise their hand and run. And so, if you're a fighter out there, we need those people to come out and, to run. And we can't let people be unchecked anymore, especially running against, Democrats. We can't let them have free runs. So, my message to you is, look, if this sinks in and resonates with you, you need to raise your hand. You need to get engaged. You need to get involved. And maybe you don't run for office this time, because if you haven't helped out with campaigns and stuff before, find a campaign to help out with first. Learn, understand, get the background in it. And then, look at where you can be engaged and be effective and be helpful. So, but we need more fighters out there. And, I implore you, anyone listening to this, to please jump in and get in the fight with us. We need your help and support. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. And these are pivotal times. I totally agree with both of these men's message. Again, Chris Heasley show, this show, we've stayed focused on the local issues, and our entire premise is to get people more involved with this show. We'll bring you all the local content, all the local information, but there's an obligation that comes with this show, and the obligation is on you to get involved at the local level. We showed you just so many things that are happening right now that are pivotal for our children's future. So I think that message came through very well on this show. With that being said, I want to thank you, gentlemen, both.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Chris.
Thank you, Andy Meyers, Fort Bend County Commissioner, Precinct 3. Thank you, Matt Morgan, Texas State Representative. All right, guys, and with that being said, we will see you next Saturday with one more hot topic. Have a great week.